Hey everyone, NCS Master here, and I'm here to make a bit of an impromptu rant/opinion piece. I know I said my next review was going to be the next video I upload, but this video was something I really wanted to talk about, and that review is taking an incredibly long time. To not leave you guys hanging, I'll just tell you in case you missed it on Twitter, my next review is going to be of the entire Mega Man Zero series, which is why the review is taking such a long time. Due to personal life and the script writing process being very difficult, it's going to be a good while before that's done. So I may just make opinion piece videos like this more often. I have a lot of fun speaking my mind on these things anyway, but on to the topic at hand. I have no doubt in my mind this is easily going to be my most controversial video so far, perhaps even ever, but I really wanted to get these feelings out. In this video, I want to talk about The Last of Us, and what I feel has changed when it comes to us viewing video games. Changes I feel are for the worse. Also, due to how similar the games are, when referring to The Last of Us, just consider me referring to The Last of Us as a whole, as reviewing to both Part 1 and Part 2. I don't have a large amount of personal experience with The Last of Us, but I certainly have been exposed to the game. I have played parts of it at friends' places, and I have seen many online videos and Let's Plays about it, and I am versed in it somewhat. I consider The Last of Us to be okay. The visuals are incredibly nice, the music is good, and I feel it is an overall solid experience, but the gameplay, to simply put it, is shallow, and that's what I want to talk about today. This idea that story and graphics are more important than gameplay, which inadvertently or on purpose has been supercharged by The Last of Us. Let me start by asking you all a question. What is the one thing that almost all discussion around The Last of Us has in common? They all focus around the story. Some also discuss how nice the visuals are, but it's the story and characters people always discuss. But whenever the gameplay is brought up, it's always shoved under the rug and just kind of pushed aside. And that's for one simple reason. The Last of Us gameplay is incredibly uninspired and very, very basic. People simply don't want to talk about the game's actual gameplay because it's really not that great. Now that's fine. Not every game is going to have 10 out of 10 gameplay. That's just how this industry works. But why is The Last of Us being scored like it does have that 10 out of 10 level quality gameplay? Gameplay-wise, The Last of Us is about the farthest thing from special. It's a standard third-person action shooter with stealth mechanics, which is about as unique and revolutionary as a new Super Mario Bros. Game. This game doesn't attempt to be anything more than the standard model, yet it's getting scores ranking it among the greatest games of all time. This is the sticking point for me. The fact that The Last of Us has so basic gameplay that even its die-hard fans will admit it's not that great, but gaming outlets and journalists insist on it being one of the most amazing games ever crafted. Everyone goes on and on about this game's story and characters, not even getting into the fact that the premise for this story, an emotional zombie apocalypse tale, is so unoriginal even at the time this game launched it was incredibly cliche, or the fact that the ending of the first game is covered in such heinous and disgusting acts by the main character Joel that I legitimately question why anyone likes this man in the slightest after all that. Even putting aside all of that, a game's story should not be the single driving point that puts a game among the elites of the industry. These are video games. The gameplay should be what defines an amazing game, not just because it has a captivating story. And for some reason, people grasp that idea with other games. Death Stranding, for instance, got good reviews, but many admitted its gameplay was far from perfect, and it definitely was not for everyone. Spec Ops: The Line is another good example, a third-person military shooter that, while decent enough for what it is, almost everyone agrees it's very standard. Both of these games have what people would consider to be fantastic stories, yet they are still marked down for not having highly compelling or unique gameplay. So why is The Last of Us being treated so different? Why does a game that even its own fans will admit has middle-of-the-road gameplay have a 95 on Metacritic, and even a 96 for the sequel? Why is a game getting 9 and 10s when even in the reviews themselves, the reviewers aren't speaking highly of the gameplay? Reviewers have even said in reviews for the second game that the game is a masterpiece, but never fun. If a video game is not fun, why are you giving it such high marks? The Last of Us being put so high on a pedestal, even with the admitted weaknesses in the actual game, just further pushes this idea that video games should, or even need, to be more like movies. and that simply isn't true. When you start caring more about looks and story than game inner workings, you lose what makes the medium so great. You cannot get an experience similar to what you get in video games in any other form of media, but the insistence of movies trying to be more and more close to games is simply what makes them less special. This is why I am a Nintendo fan above all else, because they have always viewed gameplay as the most important facet of design. Does it always work? Of course not. Would I like them to tell more detailed stories more often, especially after they've proven they can tell some pretty damn amazing stories when they try? Absolutely. But I know Nintendo at its core value, it values gameplay on any other level. Now, I'm not going to say other companies don't do the same. I'm not going to say all PlayStation games are just movies like some insist. They aren't. But it does seem that some of the games have more of a focus on visuals and narrative as opposed to making an unforgettable game mechanic experience. The Last of Us is the logical extreme of that. When you have reviewers themselves admitting the game isn't fun, what is the point of wanting to play this game? And it's not like there aren't games that can't drive home the idea of an experience that isn't fun in the sense of it's enjoyable to play through, as saying somewhat that you will not have a great experience, but it is still an enjoyable facet gameplay-wise. But The Last of Us doesn't seem to connect with that. A good example being the genocide run of Undertale. Many people still consider that to be somewhat of an interesting experience, even if you don't feel good going through it. And when the lack of true greatness in mechanics is still rewarded with a near-perfect score, it just dilutes the importance of gameplay. And look, if you think The Last of Us has the greatest gameplay in the world, good for you. Go and enjoy it. But the vast majority have recognized it as average, but the scores don't match as such even when reviewers agree with said sentiment. This is more a message to game reviewers. Please, if you feel a game has basic gameplay, rate it as such. Don't make the story the only hard factor in why you give a game a certain score. Even if you feel The Last of Us has the greatest story in fiction, but you feel the gameplay is not good, do you really think it is right or fair to give the game that high of a score, if not close to near perfect? It certainly doesn't seem that way to me. In the end, I'm just trying to emphasize, do not hand-wave lackluster gameplay. Grade a game on the game, for crying out loud. If a creator or team wants to put efforts into the narrative and make that the most important aspect, go make a movie or a TV show, or even write a book if you wish. That's what many detractors of Death Stranding said it should have been. Its gameplay wasn't the most compelling, so why was it even a game in the first place? And to be honest, I'd argue that's what The Last of Us should have been too. It would have worked better as a movie. If you aren't going to take full advantage of what makes this medium so interesting, don't make a video game. Don't regress what makes video games so special to make them more like movies, and don't praise them for doing so. Games are far too special for that. And that's pretty much all I have to say, folks. I know, definitely a shorter video than I usually make, but this was something very last minute that I wanted to get off my chest, seeing all the review scores for The Last of Us 2 come out. And I think I said all I need to say on this topic. If you want to debate with me in the comments about this, or even follow me on Twitter and do the same, I'll leave a link to my Twitter in the description as usual. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video, whether that be another opinion piece or the review. Catch you all later.